You want to just move our way down that list?
Yeah,
What is
sure.
that list?
This
Is
is
that Bleacher Report or NBA?
no, this is NBA. So this is the NBA.com Kia MVP ladder.
Mm-hmm.
So the MVP, or sorry, the NBA usually puts out a list every week, talking about the ladder race in terms of who is at the top currently and going all the way down to 7. Usually they do the top 5 as kind of like their, or maybe top 4, I believe, where they do a little bit more of an in-depth analysis, and then afterwards they kind of have just like 3 or 4 players that they think are in that conversation. So clearly, as you guys can see, number 1, Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics. This is what the article goes on to say. It says Jayson Tatum has shown that he was
Taysom
king of the
Hill.
court as the Prince and Princess of Wales sat courtside. Obviously, it is what it is with that stuff. Wednesday to watch him drill 8 3-pointers as part of a season high 49 points in a win versus the Miami Heat. We also know that Jayson Tatum is the youngest player to hit 900 3-pointers, so that's also awesome. But also, Tatum is the 6th player in NBA history to have multiple games with 45 points or more, with 10 more rebounds, while committing 1 turnover or fewer, joining the companies of AD, Michael Jordan, Giannis, Kobe, and Carmelo. I know that those kind of stats are a little funky, and I think that sometimes they can be a little bit made up or skewed. We've talked about this
Yeah,
before in terms of
they
like,
could just you just make up whatever you want to as far as stat line
yeah.
rarity is concerned nowadays.
Yeah. And, last week he was ranked number 2, but if we look at the season stats so far, 31.6 points per game, 7.8 rebounds per game, and 4.5 assists per game. So, again, continuing that trend of assist making and things like that. So, Pete, I mean, number 1 on the list, like, do you think that's right so far? Or do you think that there's another player that should be number 1?
To me, I don't think so. I'm a little biased too. JT is one of my favorite players in the league. I picked him for the MVP before this season. And I think this dude is the best player night in, night out right now. I mean, Giannis is right there. The way he's been playing since the ladder incident is insane. It's
Yeah.
absolutely astounding. We'll talk about those other guys too. But the difference is that JT he's right now, in my opinion, top 5 offense and defense.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you could say the same about a couple of these other guys that we're going to talk about, but the difference is that they're the best team in the league, and Tatum has improved every facet of his game. I mean, year in and year out, but really this year, it seems like he was in the lab and really challenged himself to improve on the things that, people like us have always talked about
Mm-hmm.
him needing to improve. I mean, one of the things I think that sticks out with JT the most this season is his shot selection. I mean, it's so much better. Bernie, you as a
Yeah.
Celtics fan have to be like jumping through the roof, seeing how
Yeah.
much smarter his choices are. He doesn't settle for these wacky, like as long as you could get mid-range shots with,
Mm-hmm.
fadeaways all the time. They're just smart shots, and he drives to the basket and uses his strength that he looks so much stronger too, but he
Yeah.
just goes to the basket with such tenacity and force that there's almost nothing you can do to stop him, because you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to overcommit that level of defense when he can
Yeah.
shoot threes the way he can too. So he's dominant, man. And the thing is too, he's right there for defensive player of the year as far as I'm concerned. Like, he is one of the best defenders every single night, and it's impressive to see, because I think one thing we talked about in the offseason with JT was how is he going to challenge himself after that finals? The
Mm-hmm.
finals did not go his way. He didn't look very good in the finals. Jaylen Brown, there was a lot of people saying Jaylen Brown, maybe he's the guy for this team.
Yeah.
And that is clearly not the case. I mean, that is no shade at Jaylen Brown. It's just that Tatum has elevated his game even past that. So yeah, he's my pick for MVP. If you're the best player on the best team on both sides of the ball, you just got to do it. You got to be the MVP. So
Yeah.
I'm loving everything about Tatum this year. And one last thing too is his playmaking has taken a huge step up.
Yeah.
I know the assist. Is this his highest assist average he's ever had?
No, this is like 2nd so far. I mean, it's still early in the season, but
It
last year,
still looks better. Like, it looks better than it ever has. I don't know if maybe that's just me, the eye test going out of control, but I feel like it looks better. Like, his passing out of double teams and tough spots instead of just, like we said, settling for those shots. Again, it's just smart play all the time. There's really not very many wasted possessions with JT at this point.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm loving about him too is the fact that he has increased a lot of good stats. I think effective field goal percentage is a huge one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Being way more efficient at 56 compared to it's last year where he was at 52. Again, these are not bad numbers, but like you said, like
Crazy.
there was a situation where a lot of people felt that Jayson Tatum was really good, but how good can he be? Is he really a superstar? I think was the biggest one for a lot of people, and I think he's proving a lot of the haters and really proving people like, yeah, he is a guy that can be challenging for the MVP race with the
Yeah.
scoring. And I think that as long as he continues to continue to work on his games, as long as he continues to improve the stats each and every way, field goal way up from the last couple of years, 47 compared to 45, which is his usual.
Mm-hmm.
With taking a lot more shots. I mean, I know he's making more, and obviously taking more threes and things like that. But, I think for this team to be successful, they're going to need Jayson Tatum to really, go off and score the ball. I know that a lot of teams are probably going to blitz at Jayson Tatum now, meaning that they're going to try to bring in two guys, basically trap him. Not more so like let's make him turn it over, but more so like let's get out of his hands and let someone else
Yeah.
try to make plays. Um, but I think at the end of the day, Jayson Tatum is a smart basketball player. Like we talked about before at the beginning, like the basketball will gravitate towards him, and you can clearly see that it's gravitating towards him. Adding 4 more points to his points per game average is insane, especially because the way that I think a lot of people, like you said last year, like a lot of people were like, oh, Jayson Tatum had a really good playoff series. He did really well, but didn't really show it that much in the finals. And a lot of people, like you said, were saying, oh, Jaylen Brown, he's the guy. Like, I
Yeah.
think you guys are building around the wrong person. But, I think Jayson Tatum obviously is proving those haters wrong. And, I'm just excited, man. I'm excited to see where the Celtics have been going. Obviously, we'll talk about trades. I think their trade is probably up there as kind of one of the best. I know that I give
Yeah.
Danny Ainge a lot of flack for some of the moves that
God.
he made. But as we kind of will segue later into that topic. But again, I
Mm-hmm.
think that Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, obviously Grant Williams and Robert Williams and all those guys and Marcus Smart, there has been a really good core nucleus of the Boston Celtics, and I haven't felt this way in a very long time. Probably since to be honest with you, probably maybe the Kyrie trade. In terms of like
Yeah.
that
That was Cloud
excitement,
Nine.
yeah, and so I think that kind of really elevated those guys, and maybe we had to learn from that, from like having Gordon Hayward there, having um, uh, Kyrie there. But I think one thing that gets forgotten, and I know that we're talking about the MVP race. The one thing I want to say, we should have never gotten rid of Al Horford. Al Horford was the glue guy that the Celtics missed, and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
he left for that year really sucked. And yeah, I think that he really adds a dynamic to this team, and there's a reason why he got that contract extension. But I just wanted to mention that because I know that it was probably going to be a topic that maybe we talked about, but I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, is Al Horford going to essentially end up being like the Haslam, Udonis Haslam of the Celtics? I mean, he should be. Just keep
yeah,
him on the bench until he's 45. Who cares? I mean, he's such a good chemistry guy. Even if he doesn't give you any minutes, why move him? I love that contract extension they got for him. What a deal. Who cares if he plays when he's 39? Who cares? He's just there as like an excellent role model for the younger dudes, and I love Horford, man. He's such a good dude. Great locker room guy. Last thing with Tatum too. Um, One of the craziest things about him jumping up 4 points per game is that his field goal attempts per game has only gone up, I think, like 0.4. Like I
yeah,
think he was at like 20 and a half shots per game, field goals attempted per game last season, and he's only up to 21.
yeah,
So he's averaging 4 more
hmm
points on basically half an extra shot per game.
yeah,
That just speaks to the efficiency and the excellent shot selection. It's smart basketball. And I think one of the most interesting things about this, Bernie, and I'm curious what you would think about this. I really anticipate hearing more about the Ime Missoula switch and how that's impacted Tatum's game,
yeah,
right? Like I'm curious where most of this is coming from, and I don't want to take any credit from Tatum. All of this is to his credit for the most part. He's the
Mm-hmm.
one putting the work in. He's the guy that was playing incredibly well when he was 19 in the Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron James. He's that guy, but there's clearly a difference in his philosophy as a player.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if that's a carryover from Ime or if Missoula was how instrumental he is to that. I don't know. Like, do you have any perspective on that? What do you think? Or is that kind of a wait and see type of thing?
I think it's more so like I think Udoka really helped him on the defensive end, and we saw that last year, just kind of starting to blossom a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think Missoula has kind of unlocked the offense for them. Um, I
Uh,
think that like I think he really has really made it a lot more of a focal point to get like Jayson Tatum in opportunities that suit him the best, get Jaylen Brown in opportunities that suit him the best, and I think that he's clearly created one of the best offenses um, I would say in the last couple years since the Golden State Warriors, revolutionized the offense that they have right
mhm.
now. Like, I really think that Missoula has really done a great job in that sense, and really, for a young coach, that's hard, man. Like, you're about the
It's
same, you're about
super
the
tough.
same age as these players, maybe a couple years older, and it's one of those things where you have to think about, are they going to respect you enough as as a coach to
Mhm.
say like, hey, you're about my age, like why am I listening to you? It's a weird dynamic. I know that I know that now coaches are getting younger in terms of they're starting to start you know in their 20s and things like that. And I'm just excited. I'm excited because it gives like coaches like me an opportunity as well. At some
That's what I was
point,
saying, Bernie. You're up next.
I hope so. Maybe NBA. I'm not sure about NBA. But I definitely would love to definitely coach at some point. Um, you know, G League, maybe some college team, or even go over to Europe. I
Next
think that's
Supersonics coach, Bernie.
Supersonics. Yeah, man.
That's what I'm talking
Next
about.
year, I got you. Um,
What's up, Justin? Um,
Justin, how we doing, man? Um, should we move on to the next MVP candidate, or just kind
yeah, let's go for it. But
of okay?
credit to Missoula before we get
Yeah,
too far.
yeah,
Credit to him. What an excellent job that guy's doing. And
yeah.
before we get too far, the thing I think is so interesting about Missoula is that he really seems like he's challenging the Celtics players in a very similar way to Ime,
Yeah.
like that tough love on the
Mm-hmm.
court. But it comes out in a I don't know how to put it because I love the way Ime did it too, but it's more like loving than Ime did almost. Like he's got that tough love, but like I
Mm-hmm.
believe in you, you can turn this around. Like just great stuff. And I think that is probably what is, helping drive Tatum to this incredible season. I agree. But
Yeah.
let's move on.
All right. This next one is a tie for second, and it's both Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks and also Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets.
Mm,
Obviously, Luka is going Luka crazy right now. 34 points a game, 8.7 rebounds, 8.7 assists. I mean, he's just starting to put up like a little bit better than LeBron James numbers in terms of like LeBron James averages. Like that's what it's looking like right now. He's the leading scorer for the league right now. He continues to dominate. That wonders, can't, at least to the article, it talks about can it be sustainable? He's already
pretty
turned
sure.
out 51 triple doubles of his career, which is crazy to say. Um, you know, I there's a lot of things to talk about with Luka Doncic, but then let me also talk about
Yeah.
Jokic as well. Jokic averaging 23 points a game, 9.8 rebounds, 8.9 assists. Uh, this I think is interesting. I know that when you win the MVP multiple times, it starts to become a little bit quiet. Like you start to not remember.
It's tough. Yeah.
You start to forget about guys. I mean, LeBron James had this effect to him a while back.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess the question now becomes, as both of these guys are tied second according to this ladder, is it really a tie for second for both these guys, or is there a clear number two? You think from both of these guys?
God, it's really tough. Honestly, I wouldn't put either of them at two. That's just me.
Ooh,
I think Giannis is in second place. That's just me.
Giannis.
Um, I just think Giannis is too good on both sides of the ball at
Mm-hmm.
this point. And one of the things with Luca, man, it comes down to me being a bit of an old head here, but I do think team success really has to play a huge part in the
Mm-hmm.
MVP discussion. And there's a lot of people, including myself, because I would push back. Let's just focus on Luca for a minute.
Okay. Yep, yep.
Um, the team is not good around him. Like the team around him, and we were talking about this, like you mentioned in our group chat with Brad. Should be joining us very shortly here on the chat. Um, but this team is so reminiscent, and the way that Luca is carrying these guys is so reminiscent to LeBron's early days in Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
You have this superstar who is just electric every single night. It's almost so electric and so insane what Luca can do that it starts to lose meaning. And I think that was like we saw that with the joke Jason Kidd made about it being boring, right? And
Yeah.
there was so much discussion about that. I don't know why we talked about that one joke as a basketball collective fandom as much as we did, but I guess it's that time of the year where we have to
Yeah.
waste our time on little things. But it's true to a certain extent. Like people start to lose meaning of how good this kid is and how young he is and what he's doing. But it
Mm-hmm.
really does have to matter because the team is not very good. And it's hard for me to say because they just dog walked the Knicks yesterday. Uh, but I don't think that's representative of how good they are. They're not very good. The Knicks are just even worse and even more poorly coached. But Luca, it's one of the craziest seasons of all time. But if he wins, it definitely is going to end up being Westbrook situation. And I don't want Luca to fall into that because it's not really his fault that this team is as bad as it is. And it shouldn't reflect on him the way that MVP reflected on Westbrook. Because, and I'm not trying to throw shade at Westbrook, but there was clearly stat chasing that season that was absurd. Like there
Yeah.
was games, if you were watching it, where it was people were getting out of his way to give him these crazy rebounds, blocking out just to let him dive on ball. Like it was nuts, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really what's happening here. Like he is just putting up these insane numbers out of sheer who else is going to do it with this team.
Yeah.
And that's super impressive, but the defense is still pretty subpar for Luca. And I just don't think at the end of the day the team is going to be any good. I'm at this point, I honestly am not sure they're even going to make the play in. I really don't think they're good. And I don't know what their moves are to go get anybody better. So Luca for me is definitely in third place. And that hurts to say because I love Jokic and I think his numbers will go into him. But he's in the 4 range for me.
Okay.
But yeah, man, I think he's right there. It's just a matter of having a better team. And I don't we've talked about Jason Kidd a lot of times. We've talked about
Yep.
him. We've even kind of swayed our opinion here and there on Jason Kidd.
I'm
I'm
saving my
full.
opinion on Jason
I,
Kidd. I'm not
I,
big on him
I've
personally.
I faltered in my dislike of Jason Kidd as a head coach, but I'm all back in. I think he is not the guy. I just don't see it. I think his rotations are terrible. I don't understand the strategy. There's no longevity into to winning with this team and with Luca here. So I don't know. What do you think, Bernie? Where's he on your MVP ranking?
I mean, I think Luca's number two. I think that when I see the numbers in terms of offensively, like, yeah, I just the problem is that guys like LeBron James, guys like Russell Westbrook have already set the precedent, and even guys like James Harden who won the MVP too, like they set the precedent for like what the MVP award is about. Because the problem that I have with the MVP award at times is because it is such a story driven narrative by the media because they get so many votes, and because they are like the ones that really end up doing the voting, and they basically love to vote storylines in, and that's the frustrating part about the MVP award. Because if we're really looking at it, guys like LeBron James would have won it multiple times. Guys like
Should
Giannis
have.
would have won it multiple times. Like James Harden probably would have never won it if there was not story driven narratives going on,
Yeah.
or even Westbrook. Even I know Westbrook averaged the triple double, and we can talk about that stuff. But I agree with you to an extent. Like success has got to matter. Like
Mhm.
we cannot ignore the fact that teams' success has to be accounted for when it comes to talking about this award. Because why else do you play this game? You play this game to win championships. You play this game to be the very best, and at the end of the season, lift up the Larry O'Brien trophy. This isn't the we're lifting up the MVP trophy because that's the final thing I want to do. Like, this has to be
Yeah.
a team sport. There's the reason why there's 5 people on the court. If we wanted to do individual stuff, go to tennis, go to golf. Those are your sports if you want to be an individual. And so that's kind of my big thing right now, is that I think that Luka Doncic is number 2, just from the fact that I think he's doing everything that he can. Like you said, it reminds me of the LeBron James of 2007, where
Yep.
he's like just carrying this team, putting everything on his back. And I think the Mavericks have to be careful here in terms of making sure that they provide pieces around Luka Doncic, because he might do the same thing that LeBron James does: leave and go to a new
Hmm.
team, go to a different team, and say like, hey, like, you guys have not given me any players that are going to help me win this championship. Either help me out here in the offseason, Mark Cuban, or I'm leaving. And if I'm Luka Doncic, I'm really trying to force Mark Cuban's hand at this point, because you know one thing that kind of gets left unmentioned in that LeBron James Cavaliers run in the beginning of his career is the fact that I felt like they wasted some years,
Oh,
like
100%.
where
100%.
he could have won championships. They could have made some roster moves. And I think that they are more interested in selling tickets. And I think Brad talked about this in our chat. Um, is like they're more interested in selling tickets with Luka, going off, going crazy, rather than saying, "Hey, Luka, let's like get you some pieces. Maybe some of your stats take a hit because of it, but at the end of the day, it's going to help you win a championship," which is, I think, what they all want. Um, and Luka's playing out of his mind right now, scoring wise. I think assists and rebound wise, he's been the same since he's been in the league. Uh, but now it's time to start winning. And I know that this is an MVP discussion, not really necessarily a let's get Luka Doncic some help discussion. But I
Oh,
do
that's
think
fair
that
enough.
but I do think it's time to talk about how Luka needs to uh, start getting more help in Dallas. And I'm not the biggest Jason Kidd fan. I think that there's some things where I feel like he runs his superstars to the ground. Almost kind of, it doesn't remind me of Tom Thibodeau in a sense. I think that Jason Kidd is a little bit better than Thibodeau. But I do get some
Yeah,
of
he
those
probably
Thibodeau,
is.
but I do get some of those Thibodeau vibes from
Yeah.
Jason Kidd in terms of like, all right, superstar, just go out there and ball out. And so again, I think that he needs help. But he's still like my number 2 guy if I had to go for MVP race. And then I go Giannis number 3. Um, I think that Giannis is continuing to put up great numbers. Obviously, uh, the team is doing really well, and it's kind of recency bias, I feel like, for Giannis as well. Like, playing so well, putting up great numbers, but just getting kind of left in the dust because of the way that Jayson Tatum has kind of stepped up this year, and also Luka has also stepped up. And I think that's the reason why a guy like Giannis gets left in the dust.
And I'll say this again. We've also talked about this for years on this channel, on and off. And I don't know where you stand on this. I actually don't remember, even though we have talked about this as many times as we have. I truly think that they have to start factoring in playoffs into the MVP race. Like, I just don't understand how you can separate the most important part of the year from that award. And it's all, at the very least, they need to introduce a regular season MVP and a
Yeah,
whole season MVP, like, or
yeah,
something. I just don't understand it, because, like I said, this Luka situation is going to end up mirroring the Westbrook MVP and the
yeah,
Harden MVP, because we know actually that these heliocentric offenses, these offenses that run through one dude exclusively, and if he's on, the whole team is having some success, and if he's even remotely off, there's just no way they can win. These teams don't win championships. They just don't, and they never have, and they never will. And I shouldn't say
hmm
they never have, because they used to, because the league wasn't as good as it is now.
yeah,
This type of team cannot win a championship in 2022. So we're going to get towards the playoffs, and if they happen to make it in, let's say by some miracle they make it to the play-in game, win the play-in, or in round one, there is almost no chance they can beat any team in the West that they would come up against at that ranking in or seeding. They just couldn't do it, because there's no other guy. They have no, there's no team construction around Luca that even remotely makes sense to what his skill set is. Like none of it. There's no really solid wing defenders around him that can cover his weaknesses on the perimeter. There's just nothing here. So
Yeah.
you're totally right. Mark Cuban definitely is going to have to step it up. It's impressive how poorly constructed the team is and how bad the rotations are and just all of it, man. None of it makes any sense, which I guess is why Luca ends up having even more MVP buzz is because he's doing so much with so little. But yeah, I just don't think you deserve to win an MVP like that. Even though it's not the player's fault, I would blame the team. It's you can't do it. You can't do it. But you're right. They need to start thinking about it. And what are we going to do to get this guy something that's going to keep him happy and keep him here for a long time?
Yeah.
Because no way he's not looking at the Wizards and seeing Porzingis have one of the best years of his career so far. There's no way he
Yeah.
doesn't see it. Whether or not he wants him back there or not isn't the point. But he has to think like we had this guy, we traded for him, and now he's playing significantly better than he ever played for us here.
Yeah.
A worse situation on paper, but they're a better team now. So
Yeah.
that stuff doesn't go under the rug. They know that. And I think the fact that they're even like you have Luca making comments of like the Mavericks don't need to worry about me leaving. Why is he talking about that? I mean, why are we getting questions about this if it's not something that needs to be thought about?
Yeah.
That stuff matters.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on. You want to talk about Giannis real quick and maybe
Yeah.
I have one dude. I don't know who is there a fifth player on this
This,
MVP
the,
ladder?
the fifth player is Devin Booker.
Okay, that's actually who I wanted to talk about
Yeah.
after
Let's
Giannis.
talk about these two.
So Giannis, my number two in this race. Again, this is very similar to Tatum. I just think team is so good night in, night out. He's one of the top five players on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. There's just nothing you can do to slow Giannis down. I know that people say that all the time. There's nothing you can do because he's introduced other facets to his game. Similar to Tatum, he's improved on his playmaking drastically.
Mm-hmm.
Drastically. It's so impressive to see the development in Giannis's passing and just the how smart he is about passing out of certain situations where he never would have done that before.
Yeah.
And the funny part is that usually he doesn't need to do it. He can still end up making something out of nothing. When he does, that's why you have these amazing seasons from just role players. Like, Brad, I know you just joined in. If I don't know if you can hear me yet, I apologize to Brooke
What's up,
Lopez
fellas?
last week. What's up, Brad? Welcome in. I,
Brad.
I apologize to Brooke Lopez last week, and I need to apologize to you because you were right, Brad. I mean, Brooke Lopez is having one of the best years, if not the best year of his entire career right now.
He has been phenomenal. It's crazy.
On defense, that's mostly Brooke. He is playing top five defense in the league of any player right now. The looks he gets on offense is because Giannis is so smart and draws so much attention. Giannis is just he's different, man. But this is a good juxtaposition between Dallas and Milwaukee. Milwaukee has built a very, very smart team around Giannis that capitalizes on what he's good at and maximizes him. Dallas hasn't done that, but that's why Giannis in the Bucks are one of the three best teams in the league. So yeah, there's not much to say about Giannis besides he's Giannis, and that's just what he does.
Yeah, but let's talk about Booker. I mean, you talked about him as kind of like in that top 5 MVP race, obviously putting up great numbers. I think a lot of us, and we talked about this at the beginning of the season, the preseason, right? We talked about how we thought, yeah, the Phoenix Suns will fall apart. DeAndre Ayton, that drama with the coach, like that's gonna really affect the team, and that clearly hasn't been the case. I think right now they're third, if I'm not mistaken, or are they
overall?
Overall, I think, and like
I believe so.
Are they first in the
West?
I think they're first. Yeah.
I mean,
I think they have the third best record, first in the West.
Yeah, first in the West. I mean, like that's impressive. I mean, I know we
talked
talked
Chris
about
Paul.
Without Chris Paul too. I mean, this Chris Paul that's been hurt and been in the news recently. I just think that this stuff is starting to really is really starting to like put a little bit more of a light on Devin Booker, and I think a lot of us got kind of sucked into the oh, he's just a scorer, doesn't really do anything else for the team. But that's kind of what they need him to be. And he has improved his rebounding and assists per game, so I'm going to give him credit for like improving that stuff. And I think he's shooting 54% from 3, which is great.
On a lot of shots.
Yeah. And so to me, I feel like this is a great, opportunity to talk about Devin Booker and, whether, whatever happened in the finals, it is what it is. But he's definitely has improved as a player overall since that moment. And so, I want to give him my props up, and I was going to actually talk about him too, Pete. Like, he's played really well. I love the way that he's been moving, and, really carrying this Phoenix Suns team when their leader has been out for a while.
Well, and the one thing we talked about this was my biggest thing for Book before this season. We've never seen this dude do this without Chris Paul. We've never seen it. He's had good offensive games. He had an 81-point game, right? Wasn't that how many he had? Or did he have 70? Oh, I'm thinking of Kobe. He had 70, right?
Yeah.
Against the Celtics. It didn't matter back then. People took it as it mattered back then, but it just didn't. The team was garbage, right? He was taking every shot for the team. This is different, and I think the thing that's the most interesting about this is he's had more MVP buzz for seasons he deserved it way less than this one. Like, he needs to get more discussion in it because he actually is doing all of the things that I personally have criticized him for in the past, which is night in, night out, being a leader for your team, setting the tone, and just taking over down the stretch of games. Like, he is doing that every night right now, and that's truly what's impressed me the most, because it doesn't even look like they need Chris Paul at this point. And whether or not that's going to come true in the playoffs, we'll see. I mean, that's probably the biggest caveat for any player on this entire list. Everybody else we've seen have some serious success in the playoffs, and I know they made it to the finals. Or the Suns made it to the finals, but it just didn't feel the same as even Luka taking the Mavs to the Western Conference Finals last season. I don't know if that's just a me and Book problem or something I have with my perception of him. This season is truly, there's something different about him. He really looks like that guy every night. And we didn't really talk about this with Tatum, but there's been people saying, like, this is one of the first seasons where Tatum actually looks like a superstar, like, every night. It's not just he's like a prospective superstar in the making. He actually has reached that point.
Yep.
I think Booker is. I think Booker's right there. I mean, Booker has never felt so impactful on a night in, night out basis as he does right now. Me watching the game, I feel like he is almost consistently the best player on the court most nights right now, which is not something I would have thought I was saying about Devin Booker 3 months ago. That's just for sure. Brad, you're a huge Devin Booker hater like myself, aren't you?
I mean, yeah, but I got to give him his props. He's been dominating this year. This hurts me to say, but I actually have a take that I think when CP3 comes back, it'd be wild considering how much they're paying him, but he should come off the bench just because I think they flow better as a unit with Campaign pushing the tempo a little bit. I know you can't bring CP3 off the bench, but I mean, they honestly do run better without him kind of, traffic copying everything. This is my point guard, but the proof is in the pudding,
Yeah.
Mikal Bridges has been a different player because he gets more touches. Ayton gets more touches. I actually like the idea of Booker running point guard for this team because the league is going towards tall point guards like Luka, so he doesn't have to be a point guard per se, but he can run your offense, and you could slot in someone tall and a good defender next to him, and I think you would have a better result than you did with the Suns map series because that was mostly a CP3 failure. From be honest, the Game 7 was a team failure, but blowing the series was mostly a CP3 issue.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something that we'll have to definitely review, and maybe that's something that maybe down the line we could talk about some CP3 situations, especially that one, because I do agree with you, Brad. I do think that there was some CP3 issues in that series, and starting to listen to you more, I do agree with you in the sense that maybe CP3 does have to come off the bench. We've talked about the Suns before on this channel, numerous amount of times when Devin Booker was there, and there was like, oh, they just need to find that point guard. They keep failing in the draft. And maybe Devin Booker was the point guard they had all along. Like Brad was saying, the league is going towards that way. I mean, I probably still would have tried to go after Luka that year because I know they went 8.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not even a question.
But I do think that it's very interesting to see that Devin Booker has definitely played a lot better, and the team has flowed a lot better, and it's helped my fantasy team with Bridges balling out. But I'm excited.
That definitely has been helping your team, Bernie.
For real.
But I've been excited. This is the first time in a while where I've been like excited about a Devin Booker situation. Before I was really questioning him, especially in that final series where he had that bad turnover, not recognizing that the guy Holiday was going to come behind him. But man, it's fun to watch Devin Booker, develop and grow, and that's the fun thing about basketball. People grow and develop and get new tricks in their bags and things like that. So it's a lot of fun to see.
It'll be interesting to see how it translates to, like, can he do this in the playoffs? We'll see.
That's the thing. In a big moment, I know I bring this up all the time. Is this the same Devin Booker that needs to move the mascot? Right? Is it the same guy? Like, that sounds like just a joke, but I really mean that. Like, is the mindset the same as that guy? Because it doesn't feel like it is, but we still have to see like a huge prime time moment where this dude is going to take on a better team possibly and come through in the clutch. Like, I still need to see it the whole season, but we'll see. And going on your CP3 thing, I wasn't even really thinking about that. I still think they should probably keep him on the front line when they have him, but he is very old. He has not necessarily looked his best in a while. This could be a situation where you do start looking at maybe a better fitting point guard in the long term, or a better fitting kind of a guard who could play point and more off-ball type of stuff, right? And definitely like let Booker take the reins a little bit more. Because I was thinking, like, what if they went and got somebody like, they could either get one of these two dudes. What about like Lonzo or Caruso from Chicago? That would be an incredible fit for this team. You have even more defense. You have somebody who doesn't need the ball in their hands to be very impactful, do a lot of things. They can take the pressure off of Book if they need to as well. I think that's something that's important. And realistically, my biggest pushback would be I do not trust Campaign, like, in big situations. I just don't.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like your idea, but there needs to be somebody better than him to be that person to fill in for Chris Paul. And if it's somebody that's like Lonzo or Caruso, a bigger dude, that's a huge lineup that they would be running.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how much they could really use Jay Crowder right now. It's funny, like, he has to be regretting his choice. He was definitely hearing everybody talk about this team was going to fall off a cliff and sold out to get out of there. And now he's like, now I got to just, keep the energy I had. But this is probably the best team he could have been on, too, for himself. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, for sure. With that being said, let us know in the comment section down below, people. What do you guys think of the MVP race? Is it Tatum number 1? Is it Luka number 1? Like, let us know who you guys think is the MVP in the comment section down below, and also the live chat if you are here live on the Sunday morning or afternoon, wherever you're at watching it. We appreciate you doing that. And please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button to let people know that you enjoyed the charge and you enjoy our conversations and topics when it comes to talking about the MVP. Like I said, let us know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of the MVP race?